We are live from Mount Shasta.
We are live from Tampa, Florida. It's Team Mount Shasta. Oh, wait, I got that backwards. Sorry.
We are from Quebec. No.
Right?
Yeah. Team Tampa from Quebec, Canada. In Mount Shasta. You should cut over to the other camera for a little while just so we can see a few of them.
With smiling faces.
With your kind donations, we will eventually have cameras that have remote pan tilt zoom capability. And we can see everybody go around. And it'll be great. We just need some more donations, and there's a few other things ahead of that.
That's right.
Well, welcome everybody who's here, either here live in the studio audience or live online watching us from points beyond. Does anybody have any questions?
Right out the bat.
Right. Hold it, Nina. Hold it.
Okay. My hands were stuck down there.
So Lonnie is online. We all met Lonnie this last
Hello,
weekend.
Lonnie.
Hi, Lonnie.
And Will is with us.
Hey, Will.
and
Hey, Will.
Maria from Wisconsin.
Maria from Wisconsin. Hi, Maria. How much snow? We are down to 0 snow, and it didn't freeze last night. It was 40 when I got up today.
It was beautiful.
I drove over the ice berm at the Cosmic Temple finally.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
really?
It was a big success. I'm like, I can drive over it.
All right.
Slid
Cool.
a bit.
Dennis Brown is with us.
Dennis, welcome, my friend. Welcome. So tonight's theme is creativity. Our goal is to be creative at implementing the plans you all have. Most of you have. Some of you have. For your project for the year. And so I'm going to use some of my projects as examples, some of Oria's projects as examples, and I'm probably going to raid the arsenal of E.J. Gold here a little bit, some of his ideas, and he's got more ideas than any 100 people I know. This guy is prolific and amazing. So on ideas, on getting messages out, he is just incredible. I've learned tons from studying EJ's methods. So creativity means new ways of doing things, kind of by definition. If you're repeating the same old stuff, it's not creative, it's repetition. Blind repetition in some cases, without even knowing the reason why. So we're looking for the opposite end of the spectrum of blind creativity. The first thing you need is an eraser. Why?
An eraser?
An eraser.
To erase your
Create space.
mistake?
Erase everything that's previously been created.
Kinda.
Ish. New slate.
What else?
Create space.
You need to erase. The first thing you need to erase.
Your old thoughts and patterns.
What's the first thing you need to erase? That's in there. That's second or third.
Have awareness
Of
the patterns that need to be erased, or the patterns that don't serve.
almost. You're spiraling closer, all of you. Ego. That's still in that closed-in spiral. What's the most common phrase you'll hear when people start talking about be creative? How do they you go to any of those?
Put your thinking cap on.
Almost.
Erase your mind.
Believe.
No. When you go to these management seminars, some of you have been in corporate world, you know, they have all these management seminars, and the first thing they tell you is, we've got to
Go.
think
Outside the box.
outside the box. So erase the box.
Mm.
There is no box. Erase the box. And what do you have left?
Space.
Infinite.
Everything. The infinite. The whole universe. As soon as you erase that box, you've got the whole universe at your disposal. So with our limited, tiny human primate minds, we've erased the box, we have the whole universe at our disposal. Let's just use our own little tiny human mind and we'll get the best results, right?
Right.
There's a whole universe out there. Use it. And how do you do that? I bet George knows this one.
I'm sorry.
Based on your shirt, I know that you have a certain amount of awareness. Ask, and it shall be given. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Right? You've all heard that. It sounds great. Makes great little mean embroidered hangings you can go down and buy at the spiritual store. When was the last time you actually did it? Ask the universe, ask God, whatever mechanism for getting there that works for you, your higher self, your holy guardian angel, your spirit guides, your ascended master. Go ask. There's an infinite number of creative beings out there just drooling for the opportunity to have someone ask them how to solve a problem. Do a meditation, pray, and say, here's a problem I'm trying to fix. Here's my better model. What else can I do to make my better model even better? And then how do I get the message out? What's the right vehicle for getting my message out? Oh my gosh. Look where Mina is.
Yeah.
She was there.
Under the altar?
Under the altar, under the draping cloth.
She's a goddess.
What kind of mechanisms would be best for the target audience you're trying to reach, who are going to be the people most helped and impacted by your new idea? The first most obvious one is that you're probably going to need to have is a website. There's this invention called, you might want to take a note of this, the internet. It's called sometimes the World Wide Web. And you go places, and it's like looking up on the library catalog and click, and oh, there's the book, right? Or the information you need. So you need to have a website that tells the world what your new idea is. Here's the way we're going to do it, and anybody who doesn't do it like this is using the old-fashioned, archaic ways. I would say be that blunt, at least. At least that blunt. To say, how many of you are happy with this old way of doing things? And then, here's a new method that solves all of it. Do this instead. So, if you read the books on how to write fiction stories, or you study that in any way, that's basically when you pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for how to build websites. All they're doing is telling you how to, the same techniques on writing fiction novels. You have a setup, a little bit of background, you use suspense, you get to the end of the shirt. Mina!
Mina. Ah! Did she leave?
Yeah, she's gone.
All right, Mina, you're on restriction. No more altars for you, Mina.
Yeah, well, next time we'll just tie something around it so it can't do that. So there's tons of these little guidebooks available on how to write fiction stories. especially suspense mystery stories. That's actually the best way to organize your website. And we're in the process of organizing one for my new book. Right? How to heal your life and heal the world. The key is, like, for example, on this website that we're still putting together, we're not going to just repeat what's in the book. We have little teasers. What are the 8 things you can do to eliminate this problem? Some of you, Bonnie and Patricia and Nina, were at EJ's a little over a week ago. And I was able to tune in for a little bit of the Saturday morning portion. And he had a great idea. He talked about, if you go back and check your notes, is that the best way to get people interested in your idea, your product, whatever it is to package it in a way that it solves one of their immediate problems immediately. Say, do you have this? Do you have iron poor blood? Take Geritol. Oh, if I have iron poor blood. Are you ever tired? Yes, I am. Well, Geritol, a poorly absorbed form of iron, will treat fatigue if you happen to have an iron deficiency anemia. If you have one of the 52 other forms of fatigue, it won't do you any good at all. But how many people ran out and bought Geritol because they got tired and they might have iron poor blood, and Geritol will fix it because the TV told them to. Who told them so? Right? Immediate problem, solve it immediately. So that's what you need to do. You just have to start getting creative with your website. Okay. My first professional website for my practice, which is 20 years ago now, almost 20 years ago. What year is it?
19?
19? Maybe 18 years ago. Let's just say it was information dense and graphics poor. I wasn't as creative an artist or the use of images then as I am now. I've learned from the best over there. So when you click on a website, if it looks ugly and it's full of fine print you need a magnifying glass to see, and there isn't a single picture on it, how many of you read it? No. If it's written at too childish a level, how likely are you to stay and go through the whole thing? No. Now class, that kind of condescending tone. So get creative at using graphics and storytelling is really what you need in a website to present your idea. Their goal should be, if somebody who's interested in your subject finds your website and gets there, by the time they get done with the main page, and it can't be too long, it can't be too short, it's got to be just right. By the time they get through that information, you want them to be demanding to buy your product, or sign up for your class, or click to the next page where they get the real juice. Whatever. You want them demanding your information. So there's a lot of books and processes out there on how to build websites. You can spend a small fortune in a hurry on a website by having somebody else do it, or with just a tiny bit of minimal effort, you can do it yourself. back in the early days of this millennium, when I was building my first websites, you either did the programming in HTML, which was then the main website language, or you bought one of the horribly expensive and overpriced products that put an interface between you and the code. It was a graphic thing. You wanted to make a box. It's sort of like the draw features in Word or PowerPoint where there's what, oh, I want to insert a symbol. So you want to put a symbol on your web page, like a box that maybe you'll put text in later. You click the box and do it. And those packages back then were thousands of dollars to be able to do that. Know how much they are now? They're free. You just go to some place, and the first one, the big improvement was WordPress. Cafe WordPress. And it was supposedly these modular packages, you could do it all. It was just free. You know, they were trying to sell you web hosting services. Once you build your pages, you have to have somebody's computer somewhere that you put that on. That's called a server, for those of you who don't know the language. So you rent space on a server, so much a year, and then somewhere out there in World Wide Web land, they associate your domain name, which you have to buy from somebody else, and some companies will sell you the server and the domain name. You get a domain name, so it's all the early websites you probably remember. You do, I know. You probably do. All the domain names were like this long string of alphanumeric characters. Mm-hmm. You were assigned that's your domain name. And it's like, you're trying to type it in, you get somebody's business card, oh, the website is, and you're, oh, that printing's awfully small, and they try 8 times, and they kept making typographical errors, and they gave up, and you never sold it. And then they came up with the idea of domain names. And then somebody got creative. I could have the domain name be something associated with what I'm selling. Red staplers are us. One of my former medical school instructors just posted a picture of her desk in her office, with all the office-y kind of stuff. And it has this big sign, you know, like you'd normally put a big sign that stands up at an angle, and it's engraved with those laser whatevers, and it says, oh, this is John Smith, CEO, right? Only hers said, ask me about my cats. And so she says, look what's new in my office. What do you think? And so everybody who knows her are writing things like, oh, hey, great. That's a great, you know, like Steve Garvey bobblehead, or whatever the bobblehead she was on her desk shelf. And I looked at the top of her desk, and there was a red stapler. And I said, oh my gosh, I've wanted a red stapler since forever. I am so jealous. And of course, nobody's even bothered to acknowledge her cat sign, right? Just to mess with her. And so, you know, red staplers are us. If you get that domain name, though, make sure you actually sell red staplers. That you're not selling bobbleheads. So that was a big innovation. I remember thinking, wow, what a good idea. Why did somebody think of that before? You know, having spent a lot of time typing in those alphanumeric websites incorrectly. So you get a domain name, you build a website, you rent server space, and then you build your pages with WordPress. Now, the problem that I found with WordPress, and Bonnie and I tried WordPress valiantly for what, 6-7 years? Mm-hmm. We got a lot of help from her son, who is a computer animation expert and knows everything about computers I think there is. And anytime or almost every time, I'd say at least 95% of the time we wanted to make a change on the website to do something, we had to send an email and say, hey, it's supposed to be doing this, but isn't, and then turns out he would try to use the menu-driven options himself, and then have to go back in behind in the code and change something in the code. So you had to be a programmer to really make WordPress work. That was my experience with it. I know other people love it. And when you pin them down, like, well, yeah, we have to go fix a few things, but other than that, it's great. The finished product looks great. So we're now using a service called Wix, W-I-X. And I don't think we've ever had to get anybody to tinker in the code. It just works. Wix works.
You can get a free account. It has the name Wix in the domain name, but at any time you can upgrade, like to like $6 a month, and get your own domain name and different upgrades and stuff. But at least you can start working on it like tomorrow. You can just get in there and start messing with it, and it's pretty user friendly. Of course, I'm an artist, and I still felt like there was too many restrictions to use the templates that they were giving me, so I just said I don't want any templates, and I just made everything up myself. So you have that option as well.
Which you didn't in WordPress.
Yeah.
WordPress runs on templates, which they happen to call themes. And you have this theme, and that means every page looks exactly like this, with a picture here and a box there and the text in this format, right? And you just fill in the blanks, and if you're not very creative, it's great. If you want it just the way you want one little thing different, and we were tinkering in the code, and it just became hideous. And then Bonnie found Wix. I don't even know how we found it.
I think Pat told me about it.
Oh, Pat told you about it, okay. So then we went to Wix, and even I can do it. I was never a programmer. I mean, I shouldn't say I was never a programmer. I was never trained in programming. I didn't have the patience to be trained in programming and count ones and zeros. That's really what you're doing. That said, I wrote a lot of code that tested a lot of satellites over the years, but I wasn't happy about it. It worked, but it was ugly. One of my employees, we were on this project that had been going for several years, and we'd gotten to a point where we were waiting for our launch vehicle to stop blowing up so we could fly our satellite. And there was an arm wrestling match between NASA and the Air Force, and this happened to be a NASA project I was working on, and we won the arm wrestling match. And so the Air Force had to launch their satellite first, and the rocket blew up. And so then they had to launch again, and the rocket blew up again. And so we're sitting around for the better part of 3 years waiting for the rocket people to figure this out. And if you could ever imagine a movie like the Three Stooges build a rocket, this company had advertised, oh, we've got this great idea of how to launch satellites, and it'll be great, and it's low cost, low budget, and that meant poor quality. And so they eventually had to go in and fix things the way NASA had been telling them they really needed to do all along. And this was back in the days when NASA, this was last millennium too, when NASA was still a viable entity. And then they got it fixed. And on the third try of launching an Air Force satellite, they had a whole series of like 20 years for the launch. So on the third one, the rocket worked and it flew. So we said, okay, we'll launch our NASA rocket, and we did. We spent a lot of downtime in there, and one of the good friend employees of mine was just drooling. I want to go fix this code. I want to go fix this code. And I was the manager in charge, and I said, no, we're not going to fix the code. Everything is in the box, ready to go, perfect. We're not changing a thing until this thing launches. And then the next project, he took over the job I had, and then I had moved up the ladder to the next step. The first day he was on the job, he went in and made the code efficient by his standards. I said, great, do whatever you want. He's like, really? Yeah, you're in charge. It just have to work and you test it. In about 6 hours, it was all done. He was motivated. But anyway, you've got to be able to have the code user-friendly. It's got to be reliable. And that's what we like about Wix. You just, oh, I want a box here. You, boom, right where you want it. Oh, I want a different background. Oh, it's great. We love it. Serious programmers, if you have a website that it's going to involve a lot of data flow. Maybe there's a lot of graphics, or you're processing data. You may not want Wix. I don't know what you want instead, but at least take a look at Wix if you're not horribly computer literate and you want to put up a website quickly. 2-3 pages. You need a home page, maybe a page for each product or service, and then a purchase page, checkout, for them to give you money. So it can be really simple. I tend to put too much information on, so I'm going to be cutting information out on some of my pages. And that's the core. So the next category I wanted to talk about is social media, but everything in social media is going to steer everybody back to your website. So you got to start there.
Blog would be an important part of that, especially because you're trying to put out your message. And I'd have to say that some of these things that EJ's thrown out over the years as projects seemed like, okay, well, that's cool, I get it, but, you know, I don't see how that relates to me. And yet, as you work through some of these kind of creative projects, they're very empowering, and you realize it's not, you're taking what you think about or dream about, and you're starting to put it into action. And there's a lot of fun and creativity to creating a website, or, one of the things that EJ was promoting last year or the year before was using some of these print-on-demand companies, which basically all you got to do is upload some images or a cutesy little saying or whatever it is, and you can put it on cups and mugs and t-shirts and aprons and notepads and whatever.
I still want to do the shirt that says, yes, we are a cult. We brainwash people into thinking for themselves. I gotta have that shirt at some point.
So, I heard EJ talking about it. I, could kind of see how that could be helpful, I mean, I don't see myself going into creating a little shop where I'm going to be selling trinket things, but just like we use the print on demand to make the bags for our level 4 class. So where we printed the image and a Cottywood level 4 on it, and a little canvas bag, which was, used during the intensive. So, and I made some mugs that had a Cottywood logo on them. So it was just super easy, and it was just like almost like a no-brainer.
We just need to put the link to go buy that on the Academy page. We haven't done it yet.
Yeah, no, I put them out around Christmas time, and then I got busy. So.
Yeah. No, I just remembered that. It's like, oh yeah, we had those mugs, and all the ones we bought just to check them out for ourselves, we gave as gifts. And now we just got to get the link up there. And my art prints for the Academy needs to be up there with a link to go buy it, which means we have to upload it. These are the kind of things that if we get a few more computer savvy students hanging around that we can get done. And there's no reason why everybody who holds the Akadwa in the whole world doesn't have an Akadwa mug and my Akadwa image close beside that they can put. And I say that tongue in cheek. Yeah, I would love to sell an Akadwa mug to every person who holds the Akadwa. Yes, that would help spread the Akadwa because, we're not really getting rich on it, but we make like $2 on each mug sold. So, hey, $2 adds up and you've got 50 people buying it. But especially the image that I created, some of you have seen it. If you put that up in the area you're doing the Akadwa work, you're going to feel the resonance from it. It's in there. It's in the image. You send an image that's like, whoa, you'll get something back. So, all kidding aside, it would benefit the work of anyone. So yeah, we just, when we get back from our next road trip here, that's some of the stuff we got to work on. And we got to get some help because we have too many of those great ideas, any one of which is no more than 2 or 3 hours worth. And when you had 50 or 100 of those, it adds up. Because, I'd like to sleep more than once a month. Really. I heard there's health benefits from that.
I think it's in this book.
I think it said something about sleep in that.
Right.
But you got to be careful. Anybody can print books and say anything they want. So the question is, do they have references in the chapter saying where they got some of the ideas? Obviously, some of it might be their own extrapolation and their own experience, which isn't in any reference book, but at least they've got to have a few references. Otherwise, it's not a real book.
And all of that said, print-on-demand books are also a possibility. So if you've ever wanted to print up, your grandmother's recipes into a booklet or, whatever, you don't have to make 1 million copies of them, but, you can make one for yourself and a few other people and give them as Christmas gifts. One of the ideas that I have is to have like a daytime planner thing, a day for each day of the year, but that it has all of the pagan Wiccan stuff on it. So like the phases of the moon and retrograde and equinoxes and all of that kind of stuff, as well as inspirational things to remember.
So this is a print-on-demand book. It really works. I demanded it, they printed it, and they sent it to me. And all it took was a little bit of money. So, blogs. I was blogging fairly heavily last year, and I've really slowed down since the holidays because I was getting that book out. I'm going to probably go back to it, do more blogging the rest of this year as we move through the spring and summer. I'll blog heavily. I guess that must be the working in harmony with the seasons thing that I do for living on the farm. Spring and summer blog heavily, fall and winter kind of slow down and go into a dormant mode.
Well, your Roots of Shamanism book, which hasn't come out yet, but it's a really good example of where he was blogging last year about shamanism, and now he's taken those and put a collection of them into a book that's going to be published.
Yeah, I'm in the process of changing publishers. Print on demand, it's like, sorry, right in the midstream of getting this production out, the publisher I was using, who I don't even want to give them any publicity at all, changed their requirements and they lost capabilities. And so things I wanted to do on the cover, for example, I can't do. And
they're also censoring.
They're also censoring. It's a very large, famous bookseller online that has a self-publishing arm, and they're censoring a lot of natural health information, like, nutrition. I'm sorry, that's fake news. We've got to censor that. I know through my loose chain of acquaintances in the natural health community, several people whose books have been selling on this large bookseller for 6, 7, 8 years, suddenly they took them down. No, we're not going to sell that. It's fake news. So that's why I'm not publishing with them anymore. So that book is going to wait to be finished until we get back from our road trip in a couple of weeks. And then I have another book that's ready to hit go on, which is the second edition of my gallstone book, Natural Treatment for Gallstones. And that's going to wait until we get back. The shamanism book will go first. And then I'm going to get back into more writing. I have the next 2 major projects that I need to do. So blogging is interesting. I remember the first time I heard about blogging. And basically, blogging is usually ranting. People get mad about something, so they get on the internet, and there's these networks of blogs, and let's go find a blog about whatever. So all a blog is a web page that's formatted sequentially, so it's designed so you have an entry every day or every week. I was doing about 1 a week last year for a large part of the year, and then it shows up sequentially, and then you have your archives. And you could do that with a website, and it's not really a blog, but it's the same thing. Web pages are generally perceived to be static. You put it up and you leave it there, where blogs are constantly changing. So when I decided to convert my history of shamanism blogs into a book, I took them down off. They're not on there. You can look at my website now, you won't find it because they're gone. So blogging is also a way of getting the people who follow your stuff to see your name regularly. And I have to admit, I am guilty of not doing it frequently enough. When I have an idea, I like to thoroughly flesh it out. So my blogs tended to be too long. One of the nutrition companies I worked for had me blogging for a time. This is the one that one of the ones that kind of went defunct through gross mismanagement on their part. Another story for another day. Anyway, but I wrote a blog. Oh, that's too long. You got to cut it in half. I'm like, they were really looking. It's sort of like People magazine. It has to be short enough that people can read it on their phone during the average bathroom break. Any longer than that, and it's no good for a blog. And mine tend to be long. I guess I take after EJ in that regard. His tend to be voluminous as well. Coyotes tend to be like 5 lines.
Except for when they're not.
Except when they're not. But a lot, he'll put out blog posts that are like no more than 10 lines. They're very poetic, they're very beautiful, they get you thinking, they're mind-bending. So from that standpoint, they're wonderful. And that's not the way I write or think. I think differently. So I encourage you, have a blog on your website, associated with your website, and blog frequently, a lot more frequently than I'm doing, because I think I've done 2 blogs all year so far. That's not enough. Artwork. We were talking about these print-on-demand places. What's that one called? Zazzle, and there's another one called Redbox or something like that.
It was Printful.
What's that one?
Printful.
Oh, not familiar with Printful.
And it syncs up to your online platforms, such as Etsy.
Okay.
And, all different other Shopify. Yeah.
Etsy, Shopify. Like Etsy, in theory, is a sales place for the creative arts. You're not supposed to be selling industrial products there, although people bend the rules sometimes. Yeah, it's supposed to be artwork, creative things that you created, and at least that's one of the rules. And so in theory, I could sell my art prints there, but we haven't gone Etsy yet. Gone crazy a few times, but not gone Etsy. So T-shirts. I was joking about. There's that meme that goes around the internet. Yes, we are a cult. We brainwash you into thinking for yourself. I'd love to do that, but put your art print, a Cadwa art print on a shirt. That would be great. You need to do that in my copious amounts of spare time. Whatever your project is about saving the world, put it on a T-shirt. Sell it. Contact people. There's websites on the internet that do nothing but sell T-shirts. You contact them and say, hey, I've got this shirt. Here's what the wholesale price is. You want to buy it? People will love it. Some of them probably will. And then you get other people working for you. Yeah, maybe only make 50 cents or a buck a T-shirt, and if they sell 1,000 over the year, look, that's money. And you can use it to further your project. The goal is to get the word out. Look at the guy, how much money was made off the smiley face T-shirt. Mm-hmm. I think the invention was a little different than they portrayed in Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump, where you're looking confused. Did you ever see the movie Forrest Gump? Okay. Long story short, a guy who wasn't the smartest person in the world, played by Tom Hanks, stumbles around the world and has all these amazing things happen to him. He's running across country, and he gets sprayed by mud because a car goes by. And so somebody gives him a T-shirt and says, here, wipe your face off. He goes like this and gives it back. And the guy's like looking at Forrest as this genius, right? Because he's running across country. And he said, what's a good idea for the T-shirt? And I don't know. He wipes the mud off, hands it back, and he opens the T-shirt up, and the mud forms the pattern of the smiley face logo that became so popular. That's it! And the guy goes off and becomes a millionaire. So that didn't really happen. That was poetic license in the movie Forrest Gump. So it could be really simple, you know, just like the bumper, think globally, act locally. Can you imagine if you got a penny for every one of those that was ever sold? So come up with your slogan, come up with your idea. And you want to blog it, you want to get artwork on it, make music, make videos. I don't do enough with videos for our websites, for the Akadwa. We have these online, but the Akadwa, for any of the other teachings we're trying to get out, we'd like to make more videos. That's what we want to do. Classes, seminars. Who's your target audience? You have an idea, whether it's about community, whether it's about environmental causes, whether it's about food, whether it's about hanging politicians on the front steps of the National Capitol building in Washington, D.C., whatever it is. Make a movie about it, you know, and see if you can't talk about it in public. You know, you could do all kinds of things to get the word out, but you have to know who your target audience is. And this comes down to basic marketing and knowing your demographics. So you have to know who your target audience is. When I was in practice, specializing in women's ailments in my clinic, my target audience was women between 30 and 50. And the bell curve tailed off. I saw a few in their 20s or younger, a few in their 60s or older, but 30 to 50 was my target demographic. Everything I wrote, everything I put out was aimed at women 30 to 50. And I started doing that after I realized I'd sat down over about a 2-year period and I went through the records of everybody who'd come to my clinic, and I was seeing 85, 90% women and in that age range. So I didn't worry about targeting the really young women. I didn't worry about targeting the elderly women. That was my target. And when I did that, within 3-4 months, my business had doubled. Because everything that I put out, that I was saying, I had women between 30 and 50 that I talked to. I got testimonials from. That's what was up on the website. Poor floor, because things knocked over on it all the time. So know who your target audience is. You know, if you're targeting farmers, don't waste any time marketing in the big cities. If you're targeting yuppies in the big cities, don't waste time running ads in farming papers. Okay. This is all practical stuff, but you got to get it all together at one place sometimes. The core comes down to your message. And a lot of times, the method that you are going to deliver, that you're used to deliver, is going to depend on the content of what you're putting in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So what are you putting out? What's your message? What is it you're trying to change? This is a real question.
Are you asking?
I'm asking all of you. I'm asking all the people online. You've been working. Some of you have been working on this for several months. You're supposed to know. What are you working on?
Looking for a new model for communities,
Okay.
conscious communities.
Conscious community. I like the name already. I think I know who just walked in. I could be wrong.
Dun, 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 dun.
Welcome. Dun, 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 dun.
Hi.
Fanfare. Yay.
Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. So because you're late and you just walked in, I'm going to ask you the same question that everybody else is deer in the headlights on.
Okay.
What is the content that you're working on for your project for the year?
To develop a homeless village, only 10% of say a mental illness overall or disabilities. And like open a restaurant and have the homeless people work there. And since most of them can't live out in the world, make it a permanent home and have substance abuse counseling and support, and they have to be accountable and
Cannibal?
accountable.
Accountable.
Yeah.
It sounded like you said a cannibal, and I'm like,
Like, this is taking a weird
that's
turn
one
here.
way to keep the population down.
Yeah, and so,
Take a real weird turn.
and also to have like doctors come and volunteer their time and maybe counselors and stuff like that.
Okay.
Nice.
How are you going to, tonight's discussion has been so far on methods used to get that message out. So we kind of reviewed some of the major ones, and now we're going into what message we want to get out. So let's talk about your idea, and how have you envisioned getting that message out?
Well, I was gonna go talk to the mayor and like chief of police and stuff like that, and see what ideas they have, and see if it could be a nonprofit that the city would support that to get these people off the street and make them viable. And
Okay.
that's where I was gonna try. If I run up against the wall, then I'll try option B, which I haven't figured out yet.
Okay. Well, option B would be either another city or in the county.
Right.
And everything you're just, it's really interesting. Bonnie and I are sitting over here looking at each other because every single thing you're trying is what we got involved in the first year and a half we had moved here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, it'll be 10 years ago, 9 years ago this summer. So we tried to do all of that. And it's a good idea. And we ran into a lot of roadblocks. And so we can certainly share our experience, but times have changed, so maybe you will have more success than the group of 10 or 20 of us that were involved last time we tried this. And our experience was the city was not horribly helpful. The county was much more so. And there's other lessons learned that we can share. And not to discourage you from doing this, because it's still a worthwhile and needed project, especially for anyone is mentally disabled in any way. Those, I think, our society absolutely has an obligation to help. And so I like everything you just mentioned was one of the things we had lined up to do. And the whole thing came crashing down for a variety of reasons, some of whom are no longer alive. So you may have better success.
Yeah, because I saw how it ran in Santa Cruz, and also I was a resident of the homeless shelter in Santa Cruz, and saw what wasn't working firsthand.
Yeah.
So
I think finding good models of what does work. I heard about one down in the Ventura area where they had a whole little village set up, and they had, rules for people that stayed there, and yet, there was a program to help them.
is that the one with the tiny houses?
Yeah, the ones
Well,
that
it is
little
one of the
igloos
ones with
kinda.
tiny houses.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I found is people you mentioned the nonprofit, even to do any kind of nonprofit, people have to be willing to put their name on it. And when it comes down to taking responsibility and being liable, that's kind of what shuts down a lot of these projects. And so it's just something to think about with all of our ideas is, that aspect where how do we take it from being just a great idea and even doing some research on it and getting past some of those initial roadblocks, because it's going to be the same type of roadblocks on a lot of the different projects.
So here's some questions, Yvonne, just that will help you get caught up to speed. do you have a domain name yet that you'll use for your website? Have you started planning your website?
No, not yet.
Okay. That's the first thing I would recommend you do.
Okay.
Even before you go to the city, plan your website, and in a very short blurb, you're going to say, here's the problem in our town, county, community, whatever. Here's a better way. Let's do this. You hand out a business card to all these people, because when you start dealing with governments, everybody's into business cards.
Okay.
You don't have a business card, they don't want to talk to you.
Okay.
They're not going to write it down. They're not going to read a brochure. Just your name, your organization, and your website in big letters, and hand it to them.
Okay.
And let them read it. Have an email contact on your website. And especially if you can have lessons learned and examples from other places. Here's one in Maryland. Here's one in Oklahoma. Here's one in Texas. Here's one in Timbuktu. And here's what they're doing. I'm not horribly fond of the French. And I like my new friend Louise. But I have to give credit where credit is due. And France passed a law that says restaurants and stores can't throw their excess food away. They have to donate it to places where the people who are in need can have it. Their waste went down, and all of a sudden everybody's getting fed. We don't have a food production problem in this country or anywhere on the planet. All we have is a logistics problem and a problem of determined will to solve the problem. We throw away many times more food than it takes to feed every homeless, hungry person in the world. And I mean by we, I mean just this country. Just this country, we throw away. And here's France, whole country said, no, do this, and all of a sudden, everybody has food. Nothing's being thrown away. It's a day-old bakery, oh, throw it out. No, give it to somebody who can eat it. Restaurant makes a big pot of something. Let's say they make a big pot of beef stew. And, you know, like restaurant pots are like this big around, they stand, you know, chest high. And the whole thing's full of beef stew, and they sell 3/4 of it. So they've got like 5 gallons of beef stew at the bottom of this thing. Can you imagine how many people that could feed? And they were throwing it away. And France said, no, you're going to use that. In our country, we just freak out over our germ phobia. Oh my God, who knows the pedigree? No, like, come on, you know, these people are already eating out of dumpsters to save their lives. Give them the leftovers from the restaurant. It's idiotic. And what do? France, they pass laws to give the food to the needy. In our country, we're passing laws saying you can't give the food to the needy. Many cities and municipalities now, you watch the news, they are passing laws making it illegal to give away food.
Get arrested.
You get arrested, sent to jail. There was some old guy, I can't remember where, Midwest or the South somewhere.
There was someone from Mississippi, he was a pastor.
Yeah, some guy, he just died in like 80s or 90s. And I think he was in his 90s. He'd been arrested more times than they could keep track of for continuing to give away food to the hungry. Okay, yeah, you know, go do your overnight in jail, let him out. He's out there the next day giving away food, you know. WTF? What the fudge are we doing? So yeah, we need your project. Then you're going to need to have that website in place to get your funding. It's going to take money. And there's going to be a lot of people willing to help, as long as, like Bonnie says, they don't have to sign the line on the paperwork that creates the nonprofit organization And the other thing you want to do is you're going to need liability insurance. That was the one that we didn't really research enough back then because everybody started devolving and shutting down and going nuts and running away from the meetings screaming, in some cases literally.
But just even like a homeless garden, there was supposed to be a garden, a community garden, and the community was gonna help work on it, and the homeless were gonna come work on it, and pretty soon, you have liability issues because it's on somebody's property and people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or,
Yeah, so that it went for like 2 years, the homeless garden. We helped. I took my Rototel over there and I loaned it to him and it broke and it died. But that's what we did. We helped build the homeless garden. They were using the food from the homeless garden to have like a kind of like a soup kitchen like thing once a week. And they pick days because one church has the soup kitchen one day of the week, another one a different day. So they picked the day that they didn't have anybody being fed, and they were being fed out of this garden. And it died due to this liability concern. So liability concerns are handled a variety of ways, but one of which is liability insurance and enforcing the rules and having somebody there who says, no, you don't get to do that, you can only do this.
Can you talk to your pastor or at the church?
well,
The attorney liability insurance, if he can help guide me?
I'm probably not the right person, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some ideas and experience.
Okay.
And your project is one of great need. And let's start lobbying the county, here's another thing, to do what France did. We may not be able to ever get a law through Sacramento to do that, although it's exactly the kind of law that I would think Sacramento would want to pass.
And we have a different governor now, and so I think he may be somewhat open to maybe some more progressive ideas.
Well, one would like to think.
And with respect to the local government, a group I was doing some work with the last administration, the problem with the government is they want absolutely no liability or responsibility. They actually had grant money for certain things that would help, and they were looking for local churches to accept the money to do the project. So doing a non-profit is the best way to go because it takes the liability off the city.
Yeah.
But they don't want it on city lands. They don't want it affiliated with the city at all, but they do want to see homeless people off the
They
streets.
just want to see the problem go away.
Yes.
And they don't
They're not
want
willing
anyone help
to
at
take a
all.
higher approach to getting it done. That's our experience with the local city government. So I think what I'll tell you is don't even waste your time looking for property inside city limits.
Okay.
And then the flip side of that is the homeless don't want to, they want to be in the city and they don't want to have to go somewhere else to a shelter. So,
Well, the closest shelter's in Reading.
no, but I mean, like, even if it's, 5 miles out of town, they won't go there. You can't make the homeless go there, and they want to be in town.
Yeah,
So
and even
that
if
was-
it's like this, when you look at the city limits, you're still walking a mile to downtown. They all want to be downtown. They want to walk across the street from wherever and have their shelter right there. And this was a problem we found 8-9 years ago, was they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't even walk out to, say, someplace out by the fish hatchery. We were looking at some property out there once. And they wouldn't walk that far to town. We had nobody willing to do that. So the homeless in this area are unique. There's some unique problems, and I'd say the city government is number one on the problem list that has to be overcome. So, but that's still, we've got hungry people who need to be fed, and we probably throw away more food in this town than would be needed to feed them. So get that kind of law passed in the county and in the city, and do what France, be smart like France on this issue. Be smart like France.
I think what you missed a little bit, Yvonne, before you came in, is we were talking about creative ways of doing our projects. And so we've been talking about the websites, which, it may not immediately fit with each person's idea why the website. But the big thing is, you're the idea person. You're not necessarily the one who has to do all the work. So what you're doing with the website is creating your own community of people who are going to help you do this project. You know, I think especially with community, because several of us are working on community. I think a lot of us have thought, oh, wouldn't it be great? We'll have a community, we'll grow gardens, we'll all sing kumbaya and sit around the fire, and it just doesn't really work that way. We can't do it by ourselves, and every one of us has that idea, and we want to start it, and we want to control it. We want to create it the way we envision it. And ultimately you have to have a shared vision. So community really comes from people sharing a vision and then creating something together. And what I see is a lot of people who have the same idea and none of it is happening because they want to create it themselves. And we need to realize that we all have a similar vision and start co-creating together.
Exactly. You use the Chicago energy, you meditate, you pull in higher intelligence, and now with members of the school being spread all over the continent, we have more than one community that we're dealing with. So anybody who wants to work on this community project, I encourage all of you to have regular scheduled conference calls. You can use Zoom or something like that, and talk about it. It's time to get this work. So how you get the word out? Well, just the planning purposes. There's a lot of different platforms. There's Uvu, there's Skype. I like Zoom. It seems to work better. It has even the basic one. You can have a video conference call with up to 6 people or something like that. And if you pay extra, you have all these other features. You can get, for some of the things I've considered for online classes, I think up to 50 people or 100 people, and everybody can see the picture, like my picture and the PowerPoint, and then who's ever talking, I can click on and I can see your smiling, beautiful faces.
Actually,
Sorry, I can't tell you can see my smiling, beautiful face. I smile sometimes, but the beauty part. What was that?
I was going to say you don't even have to click on them as you speak. It moves to that image. I have a group I do on it.
Cool. Yeah, that's even way better. In the old days, you had to click.
Yeah.
There was something I used once upon a time where you had to click. So these are some of the things. But we started the discussion, Yvonne, by saying, get rid of the box. Think outside the box. There is no box. Erase the box, and your box becomes a whole universe.
There is no spoon.
Right.
There is no spoon. It's a fork. Exactly. There is no spoon. There is no box. Do not limit yourself. Tap into your own. And one of the things, the higher intelligence you're supposed to tap into is you. Right? This is classic Toltec theory. You have that higher essence that knows why you're here and knows how to do it and can go get you whatever answer you require. So these are some of the nuts and bolts. This is now moving into warrior mode, if you want to use the Toltec language. We did our dreaming, we've done some stalking, and now it's time to go. Can I have that? Borrow your book again, please? This is what happens. 2 years of dreaming and then stalking and now warrior mode, and boom. So this is actually my project, part of it, anyway, of getting a message out. So my project for the year is now promoting this and taking the next step with this, which is this has all the theory on how to change the world by changing yourself and working in groups. This is the scientific explanation of classic Toltec theory. Classic Toltec philosophy of the Toltecayoto of harmonious societies centered around spiritual transcendence. This is the modern culture's scientific version of saying that. And so that's my message. Get this out there. Start getting some people's attention. I'm going to have short videos that I'm going to start putting up on the website. Just me talking, and we have, for example, the software we use for broadcasting is open source software. That means it's free. You can donate if you find it useful. And our computer expert in the family said, "Go use this." And now we have one he's recommended on a video editing software. It's an open source video editor, and that's what we're going to be using to make some videos. And just simple things. Take still photos, me talking, cutting and paste still photos, looking at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, little blurbs about each one of my subjects on this Toltec philosophy, whether it's a scientifically packaged one or whether it's classic, historically accurate Toltec work. That's a start. That's how I'm getting my messages out. I'm on social media. I have a Facebook page called Heal Your Life, Heal the World. You can follow it. Very easy to do. There's these things, you use that little round thing called a mouse. And then you can click this thing with the arrow on the screen that's called a button. It doesn't look like this. I'm not sure why they call it a button. It kind of looks more like the keys on the keyboard. They should probably call it a key rather than a button. But programmers, you need them, but you don't have to do it. They call them buttons. So you click the button and it says you like it and you follow it. And all of a sudden, every time I post something on Heal Your Life, Heal the World, it'll show up and you get to read it and share it with your friends and regale them with your wisdom for having chosen to follow my Facebook page. So, who else has a project that you're working on that we can help you with? Yes, ma'am.
I have a lot of projects.
Okay.
You want me to just pick one?
Well, yeah. Does it meet the requirement that we were working on before you started coming regularly of finding a better model that makes the existing model obsolete, and therefore all these problems, we're not trying to fix problems, we're just putting out a new model? Yeah, pick one.
Okay. One of them is that recently the land of Hawaii was covered in lava and was not there was not much help to the people there in Hawaii by the government. And so one of the projects is setting up systems to take care of the elderly, the mothers and the children who were left homeless and without any financial help and means and ways to make money.
Wow. I didn't know that was going on. You need to get the word out somehow. Have you thought about a website?
I have a website. Yeah, I have all that. So that's going on. The trouble I'm going through again is the government, FEMA and all that help right there. So finding a new way that we can band together as community, as people, without relying on government help, loopholes, paperwork, applications, this, that. They don't even have their road to get to some of the houses that didn't get destroyed. So even if your house didn't get taken, you still can't get back to your house because there's no way to get there. So there's just animals, same thing. All the animals just got let run loose. So there's a lot of feral cats, a lot of feral dogs, a lot of feral pigs right now. No one to take care of them, help them with that. So there's just a lot going on that way.
Wow. I had no clue. I haven't seen a single article on that.
You won't, because they're hushing it all up. But,
What about like getting a hold of some famous musicians and see if there could be a big concert to raise money?
we already tried that, and we already did that, and it's called Monofest, and then there's the Mango Fest, and there's all sorts of little fests that they could get with all these fabulous people, but because in people's mind, they understand that the lava happened last year, and they saw great, amazing photographs and a little bit of media on it, but then it's over. So it's like out of sight, out of mind. They don't realize that there is no land. There is no anything. So even when they come, you know, they're making minuscule amounts of money because it's and which is helpful, you know, to feed people for a while. I know the government at first set up some camps and some parking lots at the banks and different things, little teeny houses for the elderly, and then they shut it all down after a few months. You know, so they did their part, quote quote, but then their quota for federal funding got shut down because they didn't feel like the people of Hawaii deserved to have any kind of funding. They paid for them to actually get on airplanes and move their family to the mainland. That was their solution, get them off the island.
Would
Yeah.
Red Cross help them?
No, Red Cross, they set up, we set up tents, we set up places to feed food, to an art canopy for children, you know, because the children don't have anywhere to go either. You know, there's babies sleeping on you know, the ground. You know?
Right.
And Red Cross came in with their quote quote volunteers, and they went into the localized places that we set up these camps, and they demanded that their volunteers be fed and sheltered. And so they took the tents for their volunteers and the food
Oh my
for their
goodness.
volunteers. And that's where the funding went, was to the volunteers who were supposedly helping the people. So they shut Red Cross down because then the funding was done and nobody got help but Red Cross and their volunteers.
Oh.
And FEMA, same thing. My mom got $600 for her house because her address didn't meet government standards. And so she was deemed by living in a tent. So they paid for her to have a new tent, which was $600. And that's it. She's been
Oh
through
my
FEMA
God.
7 times. 7 times
Oh
she's
my
been fighting
God.
through FEMA. 7 cycles of going through FEMA. Still, she has nothing. You know, it's and no media. There's no media on it. You know, there's no homes. There's no land. The people of Puna are protesting. They're out there with their signs. They've got, you know, please let us into, you know, please just take a bulldozer and bulldoze a road, which is very easy to do, so we can get back to the little bit of homes that didn't get taken by the lava.
Right.
But it's all wrapped up in federal tape and liability and this and that, so they can't.
Somebody needs to just
do
borrow a bulldozer and do it.
Well, they can't. You know, they've tried. They've been like, well, you know, they even like, well, we'll helicopter ourselves in. You know, we'll get on horses and go across the lava and get back in. They're making it illegal for the people to actually get back to their land,
homes.
Oh my
their
goodness.
homes. So, you know,
Yeah, you guys need some big help.
yeah,
You need to bring in some big guns.
yeah, it's definitely, you know, dire. You know, these women, you know, in this room, Karen mostly, you know, has been feeding the elders of Puna with whatever little scraps that she seems to scrape up, you know, which isn't a lot, but to them, you know, it's food for a day or diapers for a child, you know. So it's like every little bit, everybody puts in as much as we can, and it's just still not enough. You know?
Well, the big problem there is you've got to change government direction, government policy.
It's so super hard to
I know.
change
You-
anything in the government. So,
This needs a short documentary,
yeah,
15 minutes or less, that summarizes all these problems and calls the government officials out by name.
I actually went back there in July to do such a thing. You know, I videotaped all the camps that they had. I interviewed the elders. You know, the bagel that fell on the ground upside down, you know, with cream cheese on it, and the elder man who comes to eat it. You know, he's like, I'm going to eat that if you don't take that. I'm like, no, brother, let me buy you one, you know, fresh. He's like, I'll let you buy me that, and I'm going to eat that one. You know, I had all this documentation, all this film, and then when I was about to put it on social media, they shut the camps down. So then there went all the footage that I made. You know,
It should still be shown.
It should still be
Yeah.
something.
Well, that's a very worthwhile project, and we've got to find a way. We, the humanity, has to find a way to get those kind of things fixed. Call them on it. I mean,
it's
yeah,
true.
you can
I'm
talk
also
more if you want.
Working on a project in Africa with a young man who's in his 30s who found a group of orphan children, and he decided to dedicate his whole entire life to building a school for all the orphan children in Africa, in this area in Mozambique. and he needs $250. That's it, to provide desks and writing utensils for the children of Africa. He's put out fundraiser, asked everybody he can. After 3 months, he did not receive anything.
There's a newscaster on CNN, I think, that his whole project is donating desks, and he's done a lot to Africa. So I don't remember which one it was, but he does have a project that he's doing that.
So those are my two of the projects
They're good
I'm working
ones.
on right now.
And, you know,
Children.
anybody who wants to work with Nina on either of those, or both of those,
I do.
see Nina afterwards.
Thank you.
So there's a problem here, and the problem in this case is government. Okay, the problem with the homeless in our community, in our county, is government. And we're going to have to make government obsolete. My book is all about how two subjects are interwoven: health and spirituality, and health as a means to spiritual growth, which is very Toltec. Right? You look at the Toltec pyramid of the Toltec-Yodel philosophy. You've got to have health. Health relies on food. You need education. And that then gives you the foundation to do the spiritual work individually in this community. So government is supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. So we have to get that message to the people. We have to literally make government obsolete. You have to get enough people in a region to make change. And basically we have to dare the government to say no. We have to say, I don't care if you don't want us bulldozing roads to our homes, we're doing it. You need to get right-wingers involved who are militia. You need to get left-wingers involved who care. You need to get construction workers involved. And you need to show up with your bulldozers, and you need to make a road. And when the government shows up to say, no, you can't, you need to do what's been done in a few places in this country where you have a few hundred militiamen standing there saying, no, we're doing this. You have to be willing to take action. And it has to be for the future. It's not necessarily for now. Question?
Well, I have a project, but there's a separate side project that didn't seem to be quite what I was choosing for the school's purposes, or
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really important that people start getting educated about our rights. I bought a really good book last year on the Constitution and Bill of Rights. And, it's not that long of a document. Everyone should read it. Everyone should know what it says on that basis level. And then in addition to that, what common law is. Because common law is the law of the people. It's in our right to use this, and we don't utilize it because we don't even know it exists, and we don't know what it is, and we don't know how to make it work for ourselves. But the biggest problem that we're looking at is that the federal government has usurped their rights under the Constitution. They're not supposed to own land. They're not supposed to be, picking wars with people in other countries. They're supposed to defend us from foreign invasion, and pretty much everything's pretty limited beyond that. And we've allowed them, by not exerting our rights, to become this huge monstrous thing that's taking over the world and limiting our rights here in our own country. And our local sheriffs know this. They are sworn to uphold the Constitution. And so when the federal government comes in and takes and bypasses them and their authority in their own county, there's not a whole lot that they can do, so they become ineffective. And this is the state of where we're at. And if we don't realize this, we're not really seeing the bigger picture.
What's the book?
Well, I can show you the book, but
Okay.
The subject is the Constitution, and the other subject is common law.
and
And one of the things I'm working on, it's in my art box in the summer room, is a series of kind of cartoon graphic novel-y type things. Remembering, I'm not a very good artist, but it's fun. It's been fun. On the Constitution from the standpoint of why the Constitution is written the way it is. Why is literally freedom of religion literally the first thing we list in the Bill of Rights? There's a reason behind that. And then we talk about freedom of the press, to assemble. Okay, that's all in the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is the right to keep and bear arms. And it wasn't written so that we could go deer hunting. It was written to keep the government in line. The Third Amendment is you don't get to quarter soldiers in the homes of the people except in time of war. You know, so if the Mongol hordes are invading through Canada and they're trying to invade U.S. and we've got to move a bunch of army people up to northern Montana, there's no barracks there. We might have to say, hey, we're using your barn. Okay, keep the Mongol hordes out. The reason those are in that order is because that's what led to, those are the three most important things that led to the revolution. Laws were being enacted against British citizens who were denied a voice in Parliament back in London. They were denied audiences with the king. He was started using the colonists as slaves, basically. And we said, up yours very much, but freedom of religion, they cracked down on religion because, in part, religions were being used to spread information. Everybody goes to church on Sunday, they have their worship, and then they said, hey, here's what the government's doing, and so they didn't like that. They cracked down on freedom of the press. Start printing handbills, next thing you know, they're burning your printing office. Because there was, handbills was the old form of newspapers. You know, before you had, it was just one page, boom, there it is. And they would tack it up on the side of a building or on a fence, and that was the method of communication. Everybody went down to the town square to read what the news was. They stopped allowing people to gather in the town square to get the news. They stopped printing the news. You couldn't go to church. You couldn't meet more than 3 people at a time. And then they said, when we started objecting, they said, oh, well, we're going to take all your guns. You know, they literally needed them to hunt. Either to keep the bears out of the chicken coop or to go kill a deer for food, right? So they started confiscating them. That came down in 1775, and at the same time, they put British soldiers in every home. So you've got the police, the Gestapo living with you, watching every move you make, calling you to jail if you do something they don't like. That's why the Constitution's Bill of Rights is worded the way it is in that order. So, everyone knows the First Amendment, religion, freedom of press, peacefully assemble. Second Amendment is Bill of, or keep and bear arms. Third Amendment, you don't get to quarter soldiers at home, in homes. What's the 10th Amendment? You don't get to answer. She's an attorney. She better know that. What's the 10th Amendment?
Freedom of speech.
What?
Freedom of speech?
No, that's first.
Oh, the first.
10th. For shame. Tell
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know many of them.
All right.
Amendments.
not specifically assigned to the federal government are reserved for the states and the people. So if the Constitution doesn't say federal government, you get to do this, they're not supposed to be. About 90, maybe 85 to 90% of the bureaucracy taking place in Washington, D.C. right this very moment, all those federal alphabet soup agencies are illegally, they're unconstitutional. They should not exist. The FDA, the EPA, all this stuff should not exist. They have no constitutional authority. Every regulation they pass down has no legal authority. All those functions are supposed to be handled by the states and or the people. Sure, we need to regulate a few things here and there for mutual safety, but it's not Washington that's supposed to be doing it. 10th Amendment, go look it up. You remember it now.
Mm-hmm. No, as soon as you started to say it, I
Yeah,
knew
yeah, yeah.
exactly what it was.
This is going to be crucial knowledge, and you want to understand what's going on out there now. It's limiting our access to that is go read 1984. That was something I suggested last year. Go read about Winston Smith. That's the protagonist in 1984. The Ministry of Truth. That's who he worked for. Guess what they specialized in? Lies. All right.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding, ding. She gets a ding. I think 3 dings in one night is the record, though. Held over here.
Lucky guess.
No,
No, they
you were
weren't
on it that
guesses.
night. You were on
They
it.
weren't guesses.
No.
You knew.
Own it.
You
Own
did
the
good.
thing.
So, there's a lot of ways we have to go about this. We have to have our intent. We have to put our attention on it. You have to embrace the notion that this is for the future of humanity. You know, the ideas I outline in my book, if they were to be implemented across the board, would result within 10 years of health and longevity for everybody in the world. I don't know how long it's going to take to implement those. But that's the message in the way I told it that needs to be told. It's a little more big picture. I mean, every chapter in my book could be 10 books the size of this one. And they're out there. They're out there. Some of them I reference. There's a lot of information out there. But what was missing was pulling it all together into a system of logic that I hope is understandable. Based on preliminary feedback, it's understandable, most of it. It's not rocket science. Okay? There's no math required. I get to say that. I love being able to say that. Something is or isn't rocket science. Humanity is here for a more important purpose than slogging through rush hour traffic to jobs that we hate, to slog home and drink beer watching sitcoms just so we can do it again tomorrow. One of E.J. Gould's primary colleagues is Claude Needham. And last weekend in the show, he, some of you are down there, he wrote a quote or said something that I loved. I wrote it down verbatim. If you bothered to incarnate on this mud ball, you didn't come here for a vacation. You came here for a purpose. I love that. So Claude, good on you. you're here for a reason, and the Toltec work is aimed at helping you find that reason. And in that same thing, EJ reminded us that there are higher forces and better ways to invoke to get to that purpose and to be successful at it. Invoke the forces and the divine entities of the higher planes in any one of the ways that works to do that. Get the information, get the methods. And don't think you have to do it yourself. There's power in community. This is what the Toltecs have always taught. Any questions? Is Serenity online tonight?
Serenity was here a while ago. I don't know if she's still here or not.
Serenity, we think of you often. I hope you're watching, and hello. Keep your mom in line. That's your job.
Maria just says that her project doesn't sound as impressive as anyone else's, but Maria, I believe you were going to be working on taking the Toltec philosophy and putting it into a children's book, which is
Or a series of books.
series of books.
That's
which is-
outstanding.
Yeah, and that's the base material that we need before we can start doing the animations.
Right. So the children's book is huge. Because when you look at these crotchety old politicians online, we're not going to change their mind. I wish we could, but I doubt it. The general public, we've got a chance. Realistically, it's about 50-50. Half we might reach and affect, at least partially. The other half, they're going to be swilling their beer and betting on sports.
I messed up. That was Bohadi that said that.
Wadi.
Yeah, not Maria. But Maria, you have a good project too. So
Oh.
I don't know what Sarah's project
I don't know
is.
what Wadid's project is.
She probably sent it to you, didn't she?
Probably. I'll have to go back to it. I don't remember what it is. Let me rephrase that, be more accurate. The children, though, the youth, that's our future. That's who our target needs to be. It's the children, the youth. For those of you who don't know, my dad passed away about 2 weeks ago. He was 87. And he'd spent roughly the last 20 years of his life building a museum, a historical museum. He was president of the Historical Society in my hometown for 20 years. There were 17 years, I think he was actually the president. He was on the board several more. His message, his legacy is building community. And when I gave his eulogy, that's what I emphasized. I even got quoted in the local paper for talking about that. But it's all about my dad. The mayor came to the reception after the funeral. And incredible honor, he basically said, because the mayor has been the mayor for a number of years. He was on the city council before that. He's saying, I used to talk to Ken, my dad's name was Ken, for years about this pie in the sky museum we're going to have one day in Marysville. And he said, none of us thought it would ever happen. But my dad made it happen. And it was all about community. He has a quote, it's become the motto of the Historical Society. The museum is not just a building full of old stuff. It's a record of a time, a place, and its people. community isn't just people randomly living in the same place at the same time. It's what we share. We share that common heritage. They're trying to stamp that out in Hawaii. Don't let them. We've tried to stamp that out all over the world with our colonialism. Don't let people speak their language. Don't let them wear their hairstyles. Don't let them have their tattoos. Don't let them wear their clothes. It's all garbage. Humanity is in a war with the dark side. I like the Star Wars analogy a little bit. The dark side of the Force versus the light side of the Force. Just like Master Yoda says, the dark side is quicker, more seductive, but it's not more powerful. Mastering the light side is harder work, takes longer, a little slower perhaps, but it's not any less powerful. But it does require all of us to wake up and to be aware and to band together as community and not let anybody stop that. Any other questions or comments?
Sarah elaborates. In short, I'm getting a group together to work on empowering and inspiring people through multiple methods and processes to heal themselves, to step into their power, and become their true selves. The more people light up, the more people they will inspire to wake up. I want to create that ripple effect of awakening and get people on their spiritual paths.
I love it. And talk to me offline. I will come up with a discount price for books for that project.
Wow.
Because this book is totally in line with that, and that is totally in line with the Toltec philosophy.
Woohoo.
So I will come up with a discount price for those books.
Nice.
Nice.
Woohoo. Good job, Sarah.
Any other comments or questions? Did anybody learn anything tonight?
Of course.
Yes.
So those who are new to the school and to this path, then should they be then writing this out and giving, like, do we need to give this to you or?
Or talk about it. It's yeah, some of you have to catch up. You're a few months behind, but not really. We spent the first 1 to 2 months pondering, using the skills of the dreamer to look at what gives us, one of the guidelines was, what is there out there that you see as a problem in the world or your community that you can be passionate about and spend the next several years or the rest of your life working on. For my dad, it was this history that he saw being lost and how that affected the community. And he pulled it together. And the town I grew up in, Marysville, Washington, is right next to a native reservation of the Tulalip tribes. Actually, there was never a tribe called the Tulalip Indians. It was a group of 5 different tribes that were forced into one place by the governmental policies of the day. And so they're there. They're the Tulalip tribes. And he, in addition to his museum, he helped assist the Tulalip tribes to build their own museum.
Nice.
And he's got exhibits about the tribes in his museum. And some of the people from the board of his museum are on the board of the Tulalip Museum and vice versa. So there's synergy going on. There's more community building. So spend a couple, that was his vision, that's how he did it. And I can even show you the picture. There's a picture of my mom and dad in the museum. The last newspaper article came out, said that the headline was, "The House That Ken Built."
Aww.
So spend some time pondering. This is the dreamer phase of what project you want to work on. You can work together. I told everybody last fall, cheating on this isn't a one-on-one test or assignment. Cheating is encouraged. Sharing your answers is encouraged for these projects. So spend the time. What is there around you that you want to see improved? And the method that I said that is the ground rule to try and do is one of the messages put forth by Buckminster Fuller. Everybody know who Buckminster Fuller was? He's the guy who invented the geodesic dome, among many other things. He's the geodesic dome guy, Bucky Fuller. Really interesting guy, brilliant genius. You know, his quote was, "You don't fix a problem by trying to fix the existing model or improve the existing model. You fix a problem by creating a new model that makes the old method obsolete." You can look at the history of science and technology and see dozens of examples. You want to get across the ocean faster? Well, you give up better designs of sailing ships and you make steamships. You want to get across the ocean faster than a steamship? You make an airplane. You know, as an example. Nothing wrong with the steamships that were A, built correctly, and B, weren't driven into icebergs. They worked fine. But the airplane, I want to fly to Paris, I'm not getting on a steamship. I gotta get to Paris quickly, I'm not getting on a steamship, I'm getting on an airplane.
As long as it's not an M80. The ones that go down.
Well, there is that. So, for the next 1 to 2 months, don't worry like you have to catch up with everybody else who's been working on this for 4 months. Spend them 1 to 2 months and come up with your ideas. That's the dreamer phase. Then we go into the stalker phase. Plan what it is you want to do. Yvonne's got a good plan. We'll help her refine the next steps. Yeah.
What if what you're doing professionally is, like, for instance, pretty similar to what Sarah just mentioned, and and that in essence is aligned with.
Good.
I mean, is that?
That's perfectly, and it's in line with my book, and it's in line with the Toltec philosophies. So yeah, you and Sarah need to trade email addresses and communicate. And there's a bunch of people working on some aspect of community, because that's what's part of what's going to save the world, save humanity. And be creative. Get your eraser out on day 1 and erase the box. There is no box. And then, after you've spent, take time. Spend a few months just planning. That's the stalking phase. That's one of the 3 aspects of our nature that is the Toltec we try to balance and maximize equally. Now, we're all one or the other, either a dreamer, a stalker, a warrior by nature. Our core nature is one of those 3. You have to work and develop all of them.
Serenity and Stellan are both online.
Okay. Hi, Serenity.
Hi, Stellan.
Stellanator. I can't wait for you to get home. I haven't had anybody to play chess with since you left. So hurry home. Tell your mom to hurry. But drive safely. And there's no snow up here, so it should be easy.
I wanted to mention that April 20th is the care and feeding of the human biological machine course. Are we going to try to have that online?
Yeah, I want to try to have that online. That may be the first time we do something with Zoom. That course will have a fee associated with it. The full name of the course is The Proper Care and Feeding of the Human Biological Machine. Obviously, I've borrowed the name Human Biological Machine from E.J. Goldsworth in his book, and I asked permission. He said, yeah, go for it. And, It is not required that you read that book before that class, but there'll probably be something in there that will help you. And it's required reading anyway. So, and in a way, it's a small composite of information I have in this book. It's more about the basics, getting started with health and vibration and what you do to be optimally healthy to permit you to do the higher level spiritual work. So that's the class. It's a, I'm not sure how long, it's a 4 hours, 6 hours, something like that. I originally designed it as 2 hours, but the last time I taught it, it took 4, and I'm going to rework it a little, so it'll probably be like a, we'll probably schedule a block of time with a lunch in the middle. A healthy lunch, but lunch nevertheless.
And then we also have a Caldwell Level 2 class coming up on the 27th of April. So if you haven't registered and you are planning on attending that class, let us know. We will be here for Golden Eagle Discourse next Monday, but the following Monday we're going to be out of town, so there won't be a
There
discourse.
will be no broadcast in 2 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks from tonight, no broadcast.
So is the
Will be.
June 20th or 21st or something like that still happening?
What's that?
It's in the, it's a shamanic weekend.
Probably.
All of the shamanic weekends are on the weekend closest to the solstice
Or
the
equinox.
equinox. And so, yeah, it's scheduled, so something will be happening then.
That
Okay.
one is probably going to be about stalking skills. There's some need for us all to improve our stalking skills.
Just so can you clarify what is the definition of the stalker?
Stalker.
You may not-
Imagine hunting. You're really hungry. You've got a family to feed. And you go out hunting. And over there, you see a wildebeest or a deer or a moose or something that would feed your family group for a week or 2. You really want to catch that game and kill it and eat it. Turn its hide into clothes, that sort of thing. But it's half a mile away. You can't shoot your arrow that far. How do you get there close enough to get your food? You have to sneak up on it very carefully. Because you've tried 8 or 10 times in the past just to run straight at it as fast as you can. Well, most of that big wild game is faster than humans. So you learn running straight at it doesn't work. You've got to sneak up on it. And over time, people got better at disguising themselves, wearing camouflage clothes, holding tree branches in front of them to break up the human form, not going forth smelling like camp. So if they know they're going to hunt, they fast so there's no cooking smells on them, so that there's no weird odors coming out of their sweat or their urine as they approach the animal. They even go so far as to be almost naked or maybe have leggings on which they rub the manure of the animal they're chasing. They crawl. They learn to work in groups. She said that group thing again. They surround the animal slowly and carefully. They tiptoe. They go quietly. They learn to work through the brush, even dry brush, without making noise. And they get close enough that finally, because the animal will move around as it grazes and feeds, it's going to be close enough for one of them to get the first spear or arrow into it, and then they've got food. That process, you have to know what way the animal, I startle it, which way is it going to run? What time of the day or night is best for catching this animal? What time of the year is best? You have to learn through experience to think like that animal thinks. You learn that from your fathers and his father, and so I learned hunting from my father.
Can you give an analogy that's not the hunting one? Like if you were
It sounds like social media. Like it sounds like how they market people for social media.
Yeah, in a way, that's very much stalking. Chess or mahjong, these strategy games.
to like strategizing.
Strategize.
Stalkers are the strategizers.
Yeah, that this is the strategy.
Putting the plan together.
So you want to win the chess game, right? You have to learn to think more than one move ahead. If you only think one move ahead, you're constantly reacting to what your opponent's doing, and you will almost never win the game of chess. If you want to get over there, well, I need to move this piece out of the way, then move here, here, here. So just by knowing, well, he just moved his king to the corner, he's got 4 pieces in front of it, I've got to jockey around, I got to start moving my pieces to the other side of the board, but this is in the way, I got to capture that guy first. All of a sudden you're thinking 8, 10 moves ahead, and yet every move the opponent makes means you have to adjust your strategy. Grandmasters, chess, they have these different ratings you get by how many games you win. What's your overall career record, basically? You get points for every win based on the level your opponent's on. So this is what competitive chess is all about. Grandmasters are thinking 20 moves ahead. And every possible option you have, they have a counter for. They're that good. I'm kind of more at the 10 moves ahead. That's kind of how I think. I've never devoted that level to that. But launching rockets, satellites, which I did, are more like the equivalent of 100 moves ahead. That comparison. That was where my stalking skills was. Oh, when we get to the launch site, we need this, we need that, we have to have the fuel, the electricity, and the this and the that. And then with the mission, you got to do this, and the solar rays have to unfold. And you better make sure that when you unfold your solar rays, that you're in sun. You're not in eclipse behind the shadow of the Earth. Otherwise, your rays fold up, but then your satellite dies because the battery ran out. So you launched at a different time, so it's in the maximum duration to give you time to get everything out. Now the batteries are charging, everything's stable, and now you can have your mission. Mahjong would be the same way. Planning how to take out the Hawaiian government is very much like
the United States of
I was
America.
gonna say that.
this is why we need stalking skills. That's why I've decided the next one is on stalking skills, next
Wow.
Shamanic weekend. Okay. We all need this right
Yes.
now.
So just to clarify, do you all know what an archetype is?
Not
Not really? Okay, so he mentioned a little bit about this the other day when he was talking about Joseph Campbell, but just look at the 12 astrology signs. Each one of those is an archetype. It has different characteristics and things that we associate, that we've kind of squeezed it all under one of the astrology signs.
Oh.
And yeah.
A good example for another definition of archetype,
Mhm.
everything she said is right, is like a template or a pattern. Okay.
So in that way, you would have, let's say, the goddess or mother in heaven is the ultimate feminine archetype, and then there's going to be maybe a priestess would be another lower level of that same archetype, and then as we embrace our feminine path, we are also embracing that same archetype. So you can see it in the different levels that way. So for example, the pantheon of Greek gods or goddesses are all archetypes for different personalities and different, they have their mythology that comes along with that helps us understand that particular archetype. And ultimately, when you have a group of archetypes, you want to balance them. You want to have a little bit of all those things, but you're going to be stronger in one archetype than another. So in our lineage, we only have 3, which makes it very simple. We have the dreamer, the stalker, and the warrior. Now, I forget the analogy that you keep giving, but it's my analogy from costume design would be we go to a design meeting and we're going to have free form ideas. Everybody gets to talk about how they want to stage this show. The director will maybe give us some influence, but then we get to free form talk and discuss all these different ideas, and we come back for 6 weeks with ideas and sketches and fabric samples and all these ideas. But then we move into the production stage. Now, production stage, we've kind of already decided what we're going to be doing, but we have to stalk or look at what are all the potential problems, dotting our I's and crossing our T's and making sure that every little thing has been accounted for. And when we're going to do this special effect, what are going to be the ramifications? And maybe we should test that. Maybe we should try that. So that's kind of your figuring it out stage is when we're stalking. Of course, it insinuates that we're being a little more stealth about it. That we're not just, trial and error, but we've thought it through and we've observed and we've been watching the way things work, and then we can make the right decision. Now the warrior, we think of a warrior like him, this big guy who's just going to take a battle axe and go crashing through things.
No, I always used a sword, not a battle axe.
You could wield one if you needed to,
Well,
right?
yes.
Okay. So, but at the same time, the warrior, and we're all warriors in this lifetime. The warrior is the one who does, who just gets up and does it. So the dreamer is we all know dreamers who have all sorts of fabulous ideas and they can't organize themselves out of a paper bag. They have great ideas, but they never do anything about it. And they never complete anything because they're always coming up with new ideas. We know the warriors who don't think twice. They just run out there and do it without even, talking about it. So the stalker is really what's missing out of society right now. Most people are not stalkers. George is probably a good stalker. He doesn't say much, but he's back there taking notes, right? He's checking things out. And we all need to be a little bit more like that, where rather than just blurting out stuff and rather than talking about all these pie in the sky ideas, we need to analyze them and decide, well, is that really the right move? And what are the ramifications 2 or 3 steps down the line if we go this direction? And then we could say, well, maybe that's not the best direction because things might blow up or, whatever it is. So each one of us are trying to develop a little bit of all 3 of those, but all of us will be predominantly one or another. And I remember one time being on an airplane, and this is when I was just learning about the stalker skills, and I was sitting next to a woman police officer. And because we were both women, we were talking, right? And she had been a man, he probably wouldn't have said anything to me. And it came out in the conversation, it made it really clear to me that most people in the world that are awake or stalking, in other words, they're seeing the bigger picture. They might blend in and people might not be noticing them, but they're the ones that are really awake and seeing what's going on. Is either the police officers or the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
The bad guys are watching for the police officers and they're watching for their victims. The police officers, for the most part, are looking for the bad guys and kind of checking everybody out just to see suspicious behavior. The only other ones that are awake out there are us. The ones that have chose to consciously wake up and use those consciousness skills to really see what's going on. And we need to stalk more than blurt stuff out. We need to collect information. We need to really see what's going on.
Yeah.
From a point of being awake.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
That'd
really
be in
good.
general.
That is a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
So like going to a restaurant. Oh, I'd love to have Mongolian food tonight. That's the dreamer. You get there and you go down to the restaurant, you're stalking, oh, this could be good, I might like that. order this hors d'oeuvre, order that appetizer, order this meal, this beverage. You're looking at all the things you might do. But everybody's had that friend. You're at the restaurant, and the waiter or waitress comes back to take the order, and they just can't make up their mind. They haven't gotten to that warrior skill of being able to act, to make a decision, and then to do it. Okay, just pick something. I even knew somebody once who, after placing an order, would chase the wait people down and go into the kitchen and change her order.
Oh my gosh.
No names.
I knew somebody who did that. It was long story. So that's stalking. Does that help?
It does help. That description helped as well.
And the warrior doesn't always mean taking heads off and putting them on pikes, or battering down the gates of Rome and sacking the city for fun and profit. It just means acting appropriately when the time's now. When the time is now, you do it now. Whatever it is. Any other questions? Good questions.
So Sarah just mentioned, because she just went to a conference, I believe. She said, oh no, Bobby G was channeling her guide Gregory last night. Gregory said that we were at the beginning of the 100-year period, or the 1,000-year period, where we need to get 1 billion people awake in order to save the earth. So.
Okay.
And then Maria has an announcement. She says she's moving back to Montana, hopefully this autumn. If anyone would like to go in on a place with her, she would be thrilled. It will be a remote wilderness and roughing it.
Will you have internet, Maria? That's the only thing we care about. You've got to be able to tap in with the internet. Somehow. Satellite, whatever. I think that's a good move.
So, yeah, I think that's all the relevant questions for tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your
Thank you.
attention
Thank you.
and your efforts for the benefit of all beings everywhere.
For the benefit of all things.
I hope.
Oh.
She says she'll have internet or she'll kill herself.
Don't kill yourself. If you get to Montana and they don't have internet there, just come here.
There you go.
We have internet.